Welcome back to the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. I'm Joe Noga, joined by Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, the Guardians get back on track, snap a 3-game losing streak in the series opener against the Arizona Diamondbacks at Chase Field. Powered by C.J. Kifus and Brian Rocchio, the bottom of the lineup, getting work done for the Guardians on Monday. Just what'd you see that you liked out of Kifus and Rocchio at the plate? And really, that was about it, because the last 14 hitters were retired by Diamondbacks pitching on the Cleveland side.
Yeah, Joe, it was, you got to like what Kifus did. That was, he hammered that ball. I mean, both those balls were hit. Rocchio and Kifus did a nice job, coming out of like you said, the 7th and the 9th spot in the lineup. And they definitely needed that. That was a good win after getting swept by Atlanta. And, Gavin Williams in the bullpen made it stand up.
Yeah, Kifus, over the weekend, I think he had gone 1 for 8 in the series against Atlanta, and Stephen Vogt talked about how, towards the end of that series, they started to see some at-bats that were more like what they expect out of him. He struggled against Miami, and, said he hadn't really seen arms like Miami was able to throw at him that had the kind of stuff that those pitchers had, 100-mile-an-hour, cutters and things like that. So, making the adjustment, coming back, he said Kifus got sped up a little bit at the plate and looked like he had a nice, smooth, easy swing off of Zach Gallen there in the second inning yesterday. But Rocchio, we've actually seen that before against Gallen. Rocchio was, 19, 20 years old when he was in spring training facing Zach Gallen and homered to the opposite field off of him.
Yeah, definitely. Andre Knott asked Rocchio after the game about it, and he said, of course I remember that. I remember every home run I've hit. And, that was his 3rd home run he's hit since, coming back since July 1st, Joe, when he was recalled from AAA. He's played really well. He's made the move to second base without complaining, and you can tell he's starting to feel more comfortable there. And he's swinging the bat well from the bottom of the lineup. Well, he's hitting, I think, 286 since his return. 12, 13 RBIs. Doing a nice job. He's still kind of a swing first guy. He's not. I don't think he's ever going to walk a whole lot. But right now he's making contact, he's getting hits, and he's helping turning that lineup over.
Yeah, and you can just see as a complete hitter, he's really developing, and the ball really has been jumping off his bat lately. So a lot of good stuff that we're seeing out of Brian Rocchio. A lot of good stuff that we saw on the mound out of Gavin Williams. Sort of a bounce-back game for him after getting roughed up by the Marlins in his previous start. You go back 2 starts to when he, threw the near no-hitter against the Mets, threw 126 pitches. A lot was made about, whether he was fatigued or tired going into his next start against the Marlins. He came out on Monday and pretty much showed that, the Marlins outing was the outlier. That was the anomaly there. Gavin Williams back to the form that we see, or that we've seen since the start of June, and he's in stretches been dominant.
Yeah, 5 1/3 innings last night, scoreless innings, 5 strikeouts, 4 hits. Joe, he's had a lot of starts like that where he is, when he's on, he does not give up runs. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, 5, 6, 7 innings where, he really dominates the opposition. The only thing that really gets him into trouble is maybe, 1 too many walks, or he has a long at bat against a certain hitter. But other than that, he has he's had a really solid year, a good solid year, and it should get better, Joe. I mean, what's he got, 24, 25 starts? He's probably got about 6 more starts left. I'm really anticipating or anxious to see what he'll do going down the stretch here.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how he finishes out the season. It's just everything that he's been able to accomplish this year, adding pitches, refining his delivery, working on things during the year. It's a really special sort of package that he's put together since the start of the season. And really the stuff is what's helped him. We've seen him add, 3 different fastball profiles to get hitters to hit the ball on the ground. He's got a 49.5% ground ball rate since the start of June, and that's really impressive. He's also been dominant against left-handed hitters. You think you can go in there and throw a bunch of lefties in the lineup, and this is a guy who's the profiles of his fastballs now. He gets weak contact. He's getting through innings faster, and we've seen that in the last 2 out of the last 3 outings at least.
Yeah, lefties are hitting 142 against him, Joe. Right-handers are hitting 280, over 280. So, there's still that kind of an extreme there, but he has really dominated left-handed hitters. And, I like the fact that you brought up the ground ball rate. He's thrown that curveball a lot more, I think, and that leads to, softer contact, more contact on the ground. I think that's really helped him.
Yeah, it's been not just that he's throwing it more. It's been a really good curveball. It dives off the table, and guys are just flailing at it and topping it into the ground, and that's how he's getting some of these really good ground ball rates. And we mentioned Rocchio and Arias up the middle. We saw them last night make a couple of plays at the bag, and the defense was again really solid, sort of the opposite of the way they played on Sunday. They made outs when they needed to and got the plays taken care of. The ball wound up where it needed to be against a team like Arizona that has some guys at the top that can really go. You're talking about Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll. These are some of the best base runners in the National League. So, when the ball winds up where it's supposed to be, Gavin Williams looks pretty good.
Yeah, and it was good to see that Vogt put his best line, the best middle of the lineup, middle of the diamond lineup back out there. I'm not taking anything away from Angel Martinez, but it's good. If you want Arias and Rocchio to develop, play them. Play them out there. There's 38 games left. They can handle it. They're both young and strong. Let them play together and get their timing down.
Also, really good to see when Gavin Williams did get himself into a situation in the 6th inning with runners on the corners. It didn't take long for Stephen Vogt to go to Eric Sabrowski. He came in a tight spot, got 2 huge outs, one with a strikeout. Sabrowski, since coming back from injury, looks really sharp out there. And now, I don't know, is there a word for fireman in Canada? Because Cade Smith was the fireman for so long when they had Emmanuel Clase closing games. Now Smith has sort of graduated to that role. So they put another Canadian fireman out there in Eric Sabrowski. I don't know. The state police are the Mounties in Canada. I don't know what the firefighters are in north of the border, but Eric Sabrowski is the Canadian fireman of the moment. He came in that spot and got 2 big outs. I handed it off to Matt Festa, Hunter Gaddis, and they got the ball to Cade Smith. Smith gives up the RBI triple with 2 outs in the 9th, but recovers to get the strikeout of Ketel Marte. Just what'd you see out of the bullpen last night?
Yeah, I really like Sabrowski. I mean, you think about this guy's path to Cleveland. 2 Tommy John surgeries. He comes up late last season. Really helps him down the stretch. Kind of just jumps in there. He's a big, strong left-hander. He's getting people out. Pitches really well in the postseason. Then hurts his elbow this spring. Everyone was going into spring training. Everyone was pointing to this guy being a big part of the bullpen. But he because of an elbow problem, he has to open the season on the IL, and we don't see him for a long time. But he's jumped right back into that role of the late inning leverage guy. And when you say fireman, Joe, I think you mean wherever there's a fire breaks out. No matter what inning, he comes in and puts, extinguishes it. So, I think he's done a really great job with that. And those 2 pinch hitters he faced, I believe in the 6th inning, they had no chance against him. He threw fastballs up in the zone. He overmatched them.
Yeah, he was hitting the top rail, as Vogt likes to say, with that fastball, the top of the strike zone. And then I think the second hitter, Ildemaro Vargas, he started after 3 fastballs to the first pinch hitter. He hits Vargas with breaks off a slider to start him off, and he had no chance against it. So it was fun to watch Sabrowski go to work, and he was a fun guy after the game. He's talking to him. He just had a really good approach, and just talking about going out there and as a whole, as a group, the bullpen getting the job done. And you could tell he was real happy with that. Guardians 3 games back in the wild card chase. Right now, the three teams ahead of them, the Yankees, Red Sox, and Mariners, all with the same winning percentage. So really, they're as close to the top spot in the wild card as they are to the bottom spot in the wild card in one of those three spots. So kind of a weird situation. Still 8.5 games out in the AL Central.
Joe, they really have to keep. They have a chance here to, they're playing against Arizona, a team that, had a fire sale at the trade deadline. Then you go to Texas, a team that's struggling, that, was in the wild card and has great starting pitching, Joe, but, has struggled of late. I think they're on a losing streak. So they've got a chance to make up some ground here to get in, get even closer to the wild card race and maybe edge into that third spot. But they've got to keep playing good baseball, Joe. They've got to build on last night's win, put the weekend sweep by the Braves behind them. So it's going to be this is an interesting stretch of baseball. This is going to decide just how far they can advance, I think.
And we'll likely get to see a new face in the rotation, or at least making a spot start on Wednesday for the getaway game. All signs, all indications point to Parker Messick, the young left-hander, 2022 draft pick from the second round out of Florida State. He could be the guy that they decide to start on Wednesday. Haven't gotten confirmation from that, but just by being around the clubhouse and being around the team, all signs indicate that Messick is going to be the guy called up to make his major league debut on Wednesday. Tonight, no small task for Tanner Bybee and the Guardians as they face Eduardo Rodriguez. This is a guy who's 7-0 in 9 career starts against the Guardians.
This is the lefty that haunts their dreams, Joe. No matter what team he faces for, no matter what team he plays for, he always seems to face the Guardians, and he always seems to come out one step ahead of them.
Yeah, this is the guy that sort of, in my mind, started the whole, hey, Cleveland can't beat left-handers thing. This is who you were talking about when you said that, at least for the last several years. Like you said, I remember games against him when he pitched for Chicago, where he just owned the Guardians, and it was really a struggle. Just why do you think that is? Is it just one guy has the ability to have such a hold over one team like that?
Yeah, I think he has an array of pitches, Joe. He doesn't just throw hard, but he throws a lot of breaking balls, and against young teams, which the Guardians usually have, kind of a young lineup. He really, he can take advantage of that. It's going to be interesting to see how he does against Cleveland tonight. They certainly have, a lot of information on him. They've seen him before. I mean, when he pitched for Detroit, it seemed like every time the Guardians played the Tigers, he would make at least one start. Well, he could only make one start, but he never missed a turn when the Cleveland came to town.
Yeah, it's funny how that sort of started the whole idea of teams rearranging their schedule for Cleveland to make sure that they loaded up and faced as many lefties as possible. Last season, they sort of reversed the narrative on that. They were really successful against left-handers, but this year it's right back to the same old story.
Yeah, I think they were 23-7 against left-handed starters last year. It was really a good number, and it's kind of upticked a little bit, Joe. The last 10, 12 starts against lefties, they've done a little better against them. But Rodriguez is going to be a test for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see around the league a little bit. Last night, would it shock you if I told you that Tommy Pham got in another fight last night? The Pirates were playing the Blue Jays, and Tommy Pham drew a walk, flipped his bat at the plate, and the Blue Jays took exception to that. The benches cleared. Tommy Pham never saw a fight that he didn't want to be a part of. I think was very interesting. But as far as the Blue Jays go, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Might be missing some time with an injury. Our old friend Miles Straw, 2 home runs in a game against Texas on Saturday. This is a guy who hit 3 home runs total while he was with Cleveland and over 3 or 4 seasons there. And then the Blue Jays are the team to watch because now you got Shane Bieber coming in, getting close to making his first start.
Yeah, Shane Bieber, they're going to activate him on Friday, Joe. He will start against the Marlins in Miami. First start since April 2nd, 2024, when he pitched for the Guardians, his last start. About 10, 12 days later, he underwent Tommy John surgery on his right elbow, and he's been rehabbing that ever since. This past Friday, Joe, he made his finals rehab start for AAA Buffalo. Went 7 scoreless innings. So it sounds like Bieber is ready. I mean, he's as ready as he's going to be. And I would imagine the Blue Jays can't wait to roll him out there, see how he does. They're having a great year. They have a comfortable, I think, about a 5-game lead in the AL East. And Bieber, at 85, 90% could only help them retain that lead.
Yeah, it's going to be weird watching Shane Bieber make his debut with the Blue Jays wearing a different uniform, pitching in a different stadium, not with Cleveland. But yeah, I think everybody in the organization, as long as it doesn't interfere with the Guardians' trajectory, I think they wish Shane Bieber well and hope he does well. It's something that we'll be keeping an eye on for sure. Before we get going, wanted to mention the NFL floating the idea, talking about the idea of playing the Super Bowl in London in the future. They haven't decided yet, and obviously it would be years away because they choose the city for the Super Bowl 2 to 3 years out ahead of time. But the fact that they're even talking about it right now means it's going to happen. They don't let an idea like this out there. They don't discuss it. And certainly now that they control ESPN, or ESPN is part of their package there, they can control the narrative as any way they want. If the NFL is willing to move the Super Bowl outside of the United States, play it in London, play it on a big stage there. Baseball, we've seen do things like this. They play in Mexico City. They play games in London. They've gone international. They open every season in Japan with games over there. What do you think about these games being played outside of American soil? And if that's the case, could we see the World Series on a neutral site in London, in Mexico, somewhere other than the United States? Would they ever let something like that happen?
Boy, that's a great question, Joe. I think obviously Major League Baseball plays international games to expand the footprint of the sport, to expand its popularity. But I would think they'd have a hard time taking the World Series out of the United States or Toronto, Canada. I think the home team, the home city, really plays a vital part in the makeup of the ball and in the makeup and the interest of the World Series, and to take that away from two hometown cities, that would be tough to do. And I think in the NFL, the Super Bowl has always been played at a neutral site for as far as I can remember. That could make this more plausible. But taking the World Series out of the United States / Canada, I can't see that happening.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay is the only team that's ever won a Super Bowl in its own stadium, and that was the year after COVID, I think, in 2021. So, it's not like it was a completely full stadium at the time. It was definitely a different experience for them having the Super Bowl there. But you're right. Yeah, economically, I think the World Series is a big driver. When you're playing it at home, it's a big deal for each of those hometown teams. You remember how full the plaza was there at Progressive Field in 2016. Just the people that come out for those games, it's a big deal, and to take that away wouldn't be ideal. But maybe if they don't play the World Series, maybe they play the All-Star game at a neutral site or outside the country. Right. Again, that's would be a logistics nightmare in terms of getting players there from all different parts of the country at the end of the first half of the season. But if the NFL is willing to take its biggest event, pretty much the biggest event in sports, and move it outside of the U.S., I think there's room in the discussion for something like Major League Baseball doing the same.
And I would think weather would play a big factor in it, Joe. I mean, think about what the 2007 World Series, the Guardians and the Indians and the Marlins. No, 1997 World Series.
97.
Yeah, and it's 14 degrees in Cleveland. It's 90 degrees in Miami. A neutral site, you could, if it was a warm weather neutral site, that could make for a much better level of play as well. So, I think that might factor into it as well.
Yeah, and you could choose a place in like Tokyo that has a dome or something like that. There's all sorts of different options. Hell, if I was London or if I was Mexico or even Canada, I'd be willing to build a dome, just to get the World Series there. Tell them, hey, we'll do that for you if you commit to having regular games here or something like that. All right, Hoinsey, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. We will be back with you on Thursday after a getaway game here on Wednesday in Arizona. We'll talk to you then.
All right, Joe.